guys, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to The Wandering Reader. Today I'm going to be recommending some non-fiction books to you. So non-fiction November is right around the corner now. In fact, when this video is going to go up, it's starting tomorrow. So I know that if you're participating in Non-Fiction November that you will have had a little think about your TBR, but maybe this video will spark your imagination a little bit and get you putting some books on your TBR that you hadn't thought of. But also I think obviously non-fiction is for reading all of the year through, not just in November. November is obviously when we celebrate it on BookTube a little bit more through a Book Olives initiative or readathon, but you know, you read it all the year through. I absolutely love reading non-fiction, and so yeah, these are some recommendations for you based on ones that I've read and absolutely loved. I did actually do a recommendations video for non-fiction on my channel a couple of years ago now, which I'll link in the cards for you. It was sort of in the sort of early stages of my channel, so yeah, I look quite different, and obviously I've read quite a lot more since then. So if you want to go and watch that one, like I said, I'll link that in the cards for you. And also recently I did a recommendations video of non-fiction audiobooks. So again, I'll link that in the cards for you and in the description box down below. If you're particularly interested in listening to non-fiction, which is the main way that I like to consume non-fiction, then I would definitely recommend going and checking out that video too. But I have 6 other non-fiction books to recommend to you today, so let's jump in. The first book that I want to share with you today is called It's Not About the Burqa, and this is edited by Mariam Khan, and this is a collection of essays all about what it's like to be a Muslim woman in the Western world today, and it covers a number of different themes. So there are essays in here sort of about the LGBTQ plus community. There are essays in here about marriage and relationships and you know, careers and popular culture and all of those kinds of things, and I found this absolutely fascinating. The essays are not particularly long and they're not really academic either, so they are very, very readable, and like I said, they're not particularly long, so you can read this in chunks and then come back to it. You know, it's not necessarily something that you need to pick up and consume all at once. So there are 17 essays in here, and I found all of them really, really fascinating. There were a few in here that I liked more than others, but I just felt like I learnt so much from reading this, and that it would be a really good starting point if you didn't know much about the Muslim faith and sort of women's experiences of being Muslim in Britain and in the West. Definitely a good starting point, and I would really recommend it. My second recommendation today is Educated by Tara Westover. This is Tara Westover's memoir, and it's all about her growing up in this household where they followed this particular way of living, which meant that they didn't really have much sort of contact with the outside world. So she didn't go to school, she didn't visit the doctor if she was sick, you know, like I said, she didn't have much contact with the outside world at all. And this is about her childhood growing up in that kind of situation, and then her decision when she comes of a particular age to educate herself, and the experience of going to school and going to college and university and all of those kinds of things, and what a little bit about what her life is like now. This was fascinating. There are some quite dark things that happen in this book, so a little warning about that, but absolutely fascinating, very, very readable. I remember I read this last year on the plane back from holiday, and I think I started it sort of like during the day before we got on the flight, and then I was reading it in the airport and on the plane home, and I could not put this down. It was, yeah, just so brilliant, and this is definitely a favourite memoir of mine, and one that I will definitely return to, probably on audio next. I haven't listened to it on audio, so yeah, but really recommend this one. The third book that I want to recommend is called A False Report, A True Story of Rape in America by T. Christian Miller and Ken Armstrong. And I listened to this one on audio last year and really loved it. It basically documents the story of, well, it starts with this one particular girl who goes to the police and tells them that she's been raped, and the way that they question her means that eventually she takes back her story. She rescinds her story, I think that's the right word. So she tells the police that she's been lying, and then a turn of events goes that a similar rape is reported somewhere else, and so the police and these the authors that we're talking about here that I've mentioned, they start investigating these cases and whether they might be linked, and who is behind them and things like that. And it very much talks about this story, documents this story of these women and this rapist, but also it talks about how rape is sort of conveyed in the media, or how it's portrayed in the media I should say, how the police deal with it, sort of like the origins of dealing with rape in the police system, sort of like going back to sort of like medieval times and things like that. And there were all of these little things in it that really made it extra interesting, as well as like sort of investigating and solving the crime. So if you're a fan of true crime books, then I would definitely recommend this one. It was really good on audio. The two authors had said like a few things at the end of the book, almost as like an afterword, but the audiobook was narrated by a woman whose name I can't remember now, but I'll put it on the screen here, and she did a really good job. It was really interesting, and yeah, another one that I would really recommend. Another non-fiction recommendation that is about animals, so if you're looking for that kind of book, then I would recommend The Secret Life of Cows, and this is by Rosamund Young. Rosamund Young works on her family farm, and they have a herd of cows on the farm that they rear for beef, and this book is basically a compilation of sort of anecdotes of her time on the farm and her experience of farming cows. And yeah, it just basically goes through lots of different facts about cows that, you know, you might not have known before, stories about what they've done in her experience, and it's, yeah, it was really interesting. Keep using that word interesting, but it is, you know, that's one of the things about non-fiction, is that it just, you know, expands your mind and makes you think about things in different ways, and that's one of the things I love about it. So for example, there are lots of, and it's really nicely chunked, this book as well, so each of the stories are no more than sort of 2 or 3 pages. So, you know, there's a story in here called Calf Games, there's a story in here called Eye Contact, there's another one in here called Fat Hat the Second, and one of the lovely things in here is she talks about how all of her cows have names, and she talks about how they were named and how different generations of cows came together. And yeah, it's just really delightful. It's really short, so this would be a good one if you're not looking for anything too lengthy to read for either non-fiction November or sort of like just non-fiction in general. Really enjoyed this one. A good read about animals. The fifth book that I want to recommend is called Places I Stopped on the Way Home, a memoir of chaos and grace by Meg Fee. And this is one that I read from the library. And it's basically Meg Fee's memoir about growing up, well, I shouldn't say growing up, no, sort of being a 20-something in New York. So dealing with relationships and the dating scene, and sort of, I don't know, like a coming of age type memoir, that kind of idea. And I liked this for a number of different reasons. Firstly, I thought it was really relatable in terms of, you know, the whole thing about trying to you know, find the right relationship and fall in love and all of those kinds of things. You know, the whole dating game and how difficult it can be. But I also loved the fact that she's writing against the backdrop of New York. So there were lots of places in New York that she described, and having been there twice myself, I love that city, and reading things that are set in that city always fascinates me. So that's another reason that I would recommend this. She's got such a relatable way of writing and thinking about things that I think a lot of people would find really fascinating. And it's not just a book that I would recommend a woman to pick up. I think, you know, a man would learn, or men would learn so much about sort of like how women navigate relationships and how they view particular situations and things like that, that I think it would be a good idea for you know, lots of men to read it too. You know, if you're somebody who's in your early 20s, then you're going to find it super relatable. If you're somebody in your 30s, then, you know, who's already maybe settled down, then maybe you know, you'll be able to reflect on some of the experiences that you had when you were sort of in these situations. Yeah, really loved it. It's one that I want to get my own copy of, because like I said, I read it from the library. It's really beautiful, the front cover as well. Yeah, loved it. And the final recommendation I have for you in this video is This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. This is a memoir, or it's a series of excerpts from diaries that Adam Kay kept when he was training to be a doctor, so when he was a junior doctor, and then sort of like beyond that. So there are various different anecdotes in here, all about his experiences with different patients and in the workplace and with the NHS and things like that. I've done a full review of this book, which I'll leave linked in the cards up here. But this was very funny at times, and very emotional at times too. It's a book that I would recommend if you want to know more about the NHS in the UK and how it works, and also, you know, it opened my eyes an awful lot to the crisis that is the running of the NHS and how it all works at the moment. You know, it's severely underfunded, and you know, it's because of people like Adam. You know, they keep it going because of their passion for their job, basically. And although systems shouldn't run off of that kind of idea, you know, you have to take your hat off to these people and really respect the jobs that they do. I mentioned on my autumn book buzz video that he's bringing out a sort of Christmas themed books, which is called 'Twas the Night Shift Before Christmas. That's already out now, and I'm really looking forward to picking up a copy of that. And it's all about sort of like his experiences of working as a trainee doctor or junior doctor at Christmas time, basically. So in a similar vein to this, I think, yeah, this is absolutely fabulous. You have to read it. So there you go, guys. They were my recommendations for more non-fiction books. I'd love to have a chat with you in the comments below. Have you got some recommendations for me of non-fiction books that you've read that you think I would really enjoy, or perhaps other people would enjoy in the comments also? Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.